What we have here is a Echo Hedge clipper. It's a PAS 260 that doesn't run. So what I thought we would do is take it apart and clean the carburetor. Let's get it running. First thing we're going to do is remove this cover and the air filter. Set it aside. And there are two screws right here that loosen. All right. Pull that aside. And there's a gasket on the back side right here that we want to make sure we put back in its place. Taking some needle nose pliers, we're going to be taking off the fuel lines. Like so. And our throttle is a 10 millimeter. We just loosen those right up just like so. That should slip right out like that. And as you can see, this just comes forward and then up. And if you have trouble putting that back in, this turns around and one side is just a slit and the other side has the hole for this to fit back into. I'll show you that on reassembly. Okay. Also, what I'd like to do right now is take the gas tank off and clean it. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. And a Phillips head screw right here. And the fuel tank just pops off like so. Let's remove our gas cap and our fuel lines. Just kind of pry them right up. It should pop right out. Like so. And if you have to, replace your little pickup filter. I'm going to take this cover, the fuel tank, and this cover, be careful of this washer on the back side of it, and put it in our parts cleaner and wash them. Now what I'm going to do is just air dry everything to make sure there's no moisture. I'm going to throw a paper towel in here and pull it out, make sure I didn't leave anything, and give us a brand new start with all of our parts. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Now I'm just going to hit this little filter right here, and if you want you can replace it, and just clean up this a little bit with air. It'll blow the grime off. Now I'm just going to reinstall this back into our gas tank. That is all there is to it. Let's get on with the carburetor. Alright, to take this apart, on this side there are just 4 small Phillips heads that we're going to be removing. Okay. And just to replace it, no big deal. You just pop that right out of that plate like that. So, very simple. Okay. And then this pops off right here. Like so. And then we have our fuel membrane right here. and just peel that off. And if you have to, replace it. It's no big deal. Okay. Then on the other side are two small Phillip heads, and remove those also. All right, once you have all of that removed, go ahead and break this apart right here. And being careful, we want to, because I'm again trying to reuse all this stuff, I want to remove this diaphragm. Okay. Now if it's hard, or if you see some ripples on the edges, that means it's going to leak air. It will have to be replaced along with a gasket. But I'm going to try to keep all of this. Now in the center of this, you see my jet? Well, there's a very small hole right here. Don't use a bread tie. I used a wire brush, cleaning brush, and I pulled one of them off with a pair of pliers. And I want to get in there, right in the center of that orifice, and just clean it. And then I'm going to hit it with some carburetor cleaner, okay? And then I'm going to dry it with compressed air. And if you don't have an air compressor, go ahead and purchase one of those compressed air cans, you know, that you use for computer keyboards and that kind of stuff. That'll work just fine. You don't need to have an air compressor. And I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit all my parts, and then I'm going to rinse them with water, and I'm going to air dry them, and then we're going to reassemble. And let's see how she runs. By the way, wear goggles and rubber gloves with this stuff. It's really caustic. So I've hit this with carburetor cleaner. I've rinsed it with fresh water, and now I'm just going to air dry it. Well, let's put this together. Remember, we just hit it with a bunch of carburetor cleaner, then we rinsed it with fresh water, and then we blew dry it with the air compressor or compressed air in one of those small cans. Either way, it's no big deal. Let's start with the needle valve. You'll notice the needle valve connects right here to it, okay? And there's a indentation on this side and a bump on the other side. The bump has to go down. That's what's going to sit inside the inside of that spring, just like that. Okay. What I like to do is I start with the Phillips screw, and what that's going to do is going to partially hold down this bar. So just put it in, but don't screw it all the way down, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It really helps if you have small hands. But we'll screw that down a little bit, okay? And then put your spring into that little placeholder that's there. Just like that. And then we're going to take our needle and slide it in there and put in our wrist pin. Okay, so it's going to be like that. Now this is where it gets kind of tricky. It's not difficult, it's just okay, just like that. And then push it all down at one time, and then finish tightening down that screw. It doesn't have to be real tight, but see? That's what we want to look at. Okay, now we're going to put this in. You want to make sure that it's not ripped, and these are valves, and you want to make sure that it's not hard or they're distorted or bent. You want to make sure there's no ripples on the outside edge where air could be sucked in. If it is, then you have to replace it. But we're going to see if we can get away with not replacing it. So go ahead and just put it on these two pegs right here. Okay. And then place this assembly on top of it. Just like that. Okay. Now our fuel pump, this is the one with the metal disc. That goes down. And again, they go on these two little pegs. So again, check to make sure that it's not hard, ripped, or any ripples on the outside that could suck air in. Okay. Let's see. This goes like so. And then our primer bulb goes on top of that. And that goes that way. Our 4 screws will hold everything together. And don't crank it down. I mean, just snug, because it's plastic. You don't want to break that. Okay, on the other side, you see our jet right there? Well, this goes, see that? That goes inside our jet. And this bracket right here points to the inlets. So it'll go just like so. Okay. And then our 2 Phillips head screws will go in here. Again, just snug. It's plastic and you don't want to break it. Alright, that is the assembly of our carburetor. Let's put it back on the machine and see if it runs. Okay, when you have this gasket, go ahead and make sure that this section here is pointed up, and that goes on the inside of the carburetor. Alright. And then this gasket and this gasket goes on the outside right here. These 2 screws are going to hold this whole assembly together. Okay, so get it started. Feed it through your carburetor. And then again, replace this with a point up. Again, point up. That goes next to that plastic space holder. Now before we go too far, using a 10mm wrench, I want to attach my throttle. And if you remember in the very beginning, I showed you that there was a indentation. See, it's flared out there. On the other side, it's not. So we want to make sure the flared side will accept this right here. Again, so it's no big deal. You just stick it in here, pull on it, and then put it into its case. And 10mm wrench will tighten that down for us. Just like so. Finish tightening down these two screws. Put your air filter back in, and this whole thing's assembled, and we'll see if it runs. Well, let's see if it runs. We primed it, turned it on, choked it. Ooh,